Hey, everybody, welcome to the Pursue Your Spark podcast. And I have a really special guest today, my longtime friend, Jasmin Jafferali. And today we're talking about her business, of course, the Healthy Jasmin as her business. And we're talking wellness, hope, and faith today. But first off, I want to say happy Valentine's to you because we're recording this show on Valentine's Day.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day to you too, sweet friend.
Well, and welcome to the show today.
Thank
and
you.
and also you guys need to know that Jasmin is from Chicago, so we had some really bad winter and cold weather up there. How is it these days?
Well, it's still really cold and snowy and wet and all that fun stuff. My kids had another day off this week because of it was raining a couple days before, and then it snowed and created a lot of icy roads, which made it unsafe for driving. So
Yeah. So tell us more about yourself, so my listeners can find out who you are and what you do.
Thank you. Yes. So as Heike stated, I am from Chicago, and I'm a native of Chicago that just recently moved out to Northwest Indiana in the Indiana Dunes, and it's known as called the In Coast because we're right off of Lake Michigan. And Lake Michigan acts like it's almost like a third ocean of America because it really does act wild and it can get really intense just like an ocean. So you got to be careful. You got to respect the waters around here. So safety is important.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun fact because a lot of people you can surf on Lake Michigan because the waves get really wild. So a lot of people don't realize that the only difference is that it's not salty.
Okay.
Because it is a lake water. My childhood, I never grew up a super healthy child, actually. And my mom wasn't a big fan of vegetables. Just talking a little bit about my journey of health. I grew up drinking pop and processed foods, but my mom still cooked homemade meals, right? So we still cook, but I call it the rice-a-roni generation, that the 80s, right? From the 80s, this is when rice-a-roni started coming to be and more boxed foods and making more convenience foods. So I feel like we're kind of like the lab rats of the 80s in terms of that processed food generation where it was just really kind of starting up, right? So my mom was a fan of that, but she was amazing at cooking homemade meals, and she still is. But I never was really a healthy eater because my mom didn't enjoy eating it or cooking it. So I kind of was an overweight child growing up in the 80s. And, when you're growing up as an overweight child in the 80s, it's not common as it is today. So there was a lot of, being poked fun at and being made fun of, not being picked on, teams and PE classes. So it really does a wonder for your self-esteem as a child that you feel unaccepted because of your looks and how how you carry your weight. So it wasn't until I would say my teens, I actually lost quite a bit of weight. I was watching what I was eating. I got more active. I was always in dance classes, but started getting more involved in sports in high school, soccer and dance and all that good stuff. And I really started to kind of have a newfound appreciation how exercise made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that, at the time, if you feel good, but you don't know why.
Yeah. Going back to the rice-a-roni, yeah. I totally remember the macaroni and cheese. That was, as a mom, this was a huge revelation for me to make my kids mac and cheese out of the box. They loved it. We ate peas with this. This was like a main staple in our house. But back then, I didn't know any better. I'm like, oh, this looks great. It looks like cheese. And, who back then read the ingredients like we do now and paid attention to food coloring and things like this? I mean, yeah, so I'm with you on that. But let's tell the listeners how we got to know each other.
Yes.
Because I know I make fun of this sometimes because I say most of my guests I meet on the internet, or actually, as somebody corrected me, through the internet, which is much more specific. But we actually did not meet through the internet.
No.
Tell the story.
No, we didn't. So it was, because I grew a love for fitness, I actually earned an undergraduate degree in exercise physiology and started working in corporate wellness. And I wanted to become certified master trainer through Resistable, the little therapy balls, as some people may see them, and in fitness centers, but also in PT centers.
Mm-hmm.
And but I wanted to kind of get it all. Like I wanted to be a master trainer in all. And you were a master trainer in Pilates on the ball. And I took your Pilates on the ball class, loved it. And then you came to Chicago.
For the very first time. I've never been to Chicago.
Yeah. It was the very first time you taught a Pilates on the ball certification to our team where I worked in corporate wellness. So
it was so much fun. And it was also so much fun to get to know you, and you showed me around. And I tell anybody who will listen, Jasmin showed me around in Chicago, and we went to Greektown, and we had the best Greek food, guys. So if you ever go to Chicago, go to Greektown. I mean, that's all I remember. We're taking the little train with a double-decker train that I'd never seen before either. And you showed me around, and you were so generous with your time, and you took me to Greektown.
I've lived by Greektown, so I was very familiar with it. I'm also part Greek, so I have appreciation for good Greek food.
Greek food. You shared with me earlier that you are allergic, you're allergic to gluten and to soy and to dairy. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? How did you find that out?
Yeah, so it was at my time when I was working at a corporate wellness center. I was a migraine sufferer, and I didn't realize, and I just kind of chalked it up more as like a hormonal thing. Mm-hmm. But they started to get more frequent. They were getting worse. I was taking a couple of leaves at a time. Mm-hmm. And it was one time where I took a prescription medication for migraine med, and I had a reaction to it. And that was kind of like my final straw. And a dietitian that I was working at a health club in the city of Chicago, now I had changed jobs by this time, and she said, you may have some food sensitivities. And this is kind of like a whole new concept. She was definitely more on the forefront of recognizing food sensitivities and health issues. And so per her recommendation, I saw a naturopathic doctor, and I went to her and said, I don't feel healthy. I work out 6 days a week. I eat whole foods and whole grains, and I am tired all the time. My stomach is bloated. Like, what is wrong? This is not normal. Mm-hmm. And so she did like a Zytoscan type of assessment and pointed to gluten, soy, and dairy, and a few other little things as well. And
what does that kind of test? How do they do this test?
Yeah, it's through, so you hold like this egg type of thing. And then what she does, she pressed like different points on acupressure points on my hands and my wrist to denote the reaction and to like the energy in your body. So it's all really was done through acupressure type of points. And so they test the how high energy or low energy or the frequency of that particular substance. And then that's how you know the sensitivity. Definitely, it's something that is actually used more in Europe because it's so non-invasive, right? You don't have to draw blood, but we know blood tests are not 100% conclusive, right? And it's just a guessing game that when it comes to blood work. So that's how I was diagnosed and tested.
And then what happened? Did you change it?
I went cold turkey. You get to a point where you're just in so much pain that you don't want to, everybody has a pain threshold, right? And I went cold turkey, and within 6 weeks, I was done. No more taking medicines for my migraines. I was off of my reflux meds because I had reflux really bad. Bloating had started to subside substantially, and I had more energy. And that was the biggie, because even though I was getting 8 hours of sleep every single night, like I'm pretty big. I mean, even back then, I've always been big on sleep. I was still waking up like I was treading water. I was just exhausted. Mm-hmm. And that's not normal.
Yeah.
Waking up feeling refreshed and ready to go.
Yeah. How long ago did you find out that you were sensitive to all these?
This was 13 years ago in January when I went cold turkey. So it was like in December of that previous year that I'd done the test, and I just decided in January I was going to go cold turkey like everybody else, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah. Did you incorporate your family with that eating as well?
Well, my husband and I weren't, we were married, but we didn't have any children at the time. And so even though I cooked gluten-free and he ate it at home, but he still had his cereals and breads and his own milk and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, after reading some really good literature, I decided that my kids would be gluten-free, you know, so.
Yeah, yeah. But that your story doesn't end there with your health, because you shared that 2 years ago you were diagnosed with chronic Lyme. Now
Yes,
that must have been a shock.
yes, it was. And, you know, it was to the point where my stomach was starting to really feeling really bad. Everything I eat, no matter if it was, you know, chips or, you know, cauliflower, it didn't matter. My stomach was just feeling awful.
Mhm.
And so I saw a functional chiro who I see for hormonal stuff. And she said, you know, let's test you for Lyme. You know, you're in the Indiana Dunes quite often. You visit there. There's a lot of ticks out here in the dunes.
Okay.
And so she tested me through a test called IGenX. So IGENEX. Where it's definitely more comprehensive Lyme test versus the Western blot test that's very common to do here in, you know, in America.
Yeah.
And they test for other co-infections. And
Oh,
so I tested positive for Lyme and a co-infection called Bartonella.
okay.
And Bartonella, they call it cat scratch fever. Because you can,
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
yeah, you heard that song, right? Everyone starts
Yep.
singing that song in their head. And you can actually get Bartonella from a cat scratch because they also carry Lyme and co-infections.
Okay.
So it's very common. I'm allergic to cats, so it's not like I'm around cats, right? But you can get it through a tick bite, or it can be, you know, passed on.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I've been diagnosed with that almost 2 years ago.
So then you're diagnosed. How did your life change? How did your diet change? What did you do? Because my daughter had Lyme when she was about between 14 and 16. And she had just some really chronic fatigue was definitely a symptom. Then she had big rings under her eyes and she just wasn't herself. And we took her to the doctor and the doctor was like, oh, it's that age, you know, girls like this are always that way. I got so angry and she said, Mom, it's not the doctor's fault that I'm sick. I'm like, yeah, but he's not diagnosing you. He's assuming that you are just faking this. And then we had just a blood test and we found out that she indeed had Lyme.
Mm.
And then she was treated with a course of antibiotics. And
Right.
according to the blood test, everything was fine, except that she didn't quite recover from all this and still has joint pains, has fatigue, still has rings under her eyes. And we went through to a supposed specialist here in the DC area. And a year later, after doing all kinds of treatments, he finally said, oh, you don't have Lyme. I think you have some gut bugs or whatever it was. And we both are like, he doesn't know what you have. He doesn't know how to treat you. And so when you said you had Lyme, I definitely want to know more about treatment, what you followed up, because
Yeah.
you said you feel so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have to see at least a Lyme literate doctor who understands Lyme, and they're called LLMDs. And so actually where I moved to, he is one of two LLMDs in the state of Indiana. So, and he treats it more holistically.
Okay.
And they say that when you have Lyme, antibiotics is typically not the answer because the Lyme has to be infected in the blood to actually have some sort of effect. But my Lyme is not blood. It's actually more in the tissues and the organs because Lyme is like a corkscrew-like bacteria or virus. So everyone says it's a bacteria, but if it was a bacteria, then Lyme would kill, or medicine would kill it.
Good, yeah.
But because it's viral, you can't kill Lyme.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you're going to hear a lot of discrepancies out there. Is it bacteria? Is it viral? So it's viral because, again, if it was treatable, everybody would be cured of Lyme, and then we'd be all on our way. So because it's a corkscrew shaped type of or viral infection, what it does, it's kind of like a wine cork.
Okay.
Right. So the wine cork's got to get into the cork to actually pull it out. Right. That's what Lyme does. It's like a corkscrew, and it beds into the tissues of our organs, or, our heart tissue, our joints, our thyroid, liver, stomach, digestive wall. This is why so many digestive systems presents itself with Lyme. And then people get diagnosed with other things like IBS and Crohn's, and joint pain would be MS and RA. So Lyme often presents itself as other diseases, but you also got to find the root cause of all these issues.
Yeah.
So we treat it definitely more holistically. I do a lot of foot detox baths. I do a lot of homeopathics. I'm doing homeopathics right now to support my kidneys, because my kidneys are not filtering as they should. So they're kind of, working overtime because they're so overloaded. And while it was interesting, some live blood, dry blood cell work that we do, they said, I drink a lot of water, but my cells were still dehydrated because I wasn't getting water into the cells.
Wow, it's interesting.
Because my kidneys were working overtime. So I was just constantly going to the bathroom. So yeah, there's really, when you look at it holistically and find somebody that knows what they're talking about, then you can get it treated as such. So that's the tricky part.
Yeah, because Melanie was just, my daughter was just being put on more and more drugs, or different drugs, and stronger this and stronger that. And he claimed to be a Lyme expert. So she's, at this point, she's a vegetarian, and she takes more naps, and she stopped running because her joints are hurting. But, when you shared your story, I was like, I need to pass this on to her, and other women out there need to hear about this and what you did about your Lyme and the side effects it had, and what path you chose to help yourself feel better, as not just taking a 4 week of antibiotics.
Right, which we know totally ruins the gut, right? Yep. Antibiotics just thins out the gut lining, and it almost acts like as an atomic bomb in your system, right? Because every time you it implodes, it just kills everything in its path, and you don't do anything to repopulate the gut. And then Lyme actually loves that, and it feeds off of that, and it just grows more when off of that. So I am now dietary, grain-free, dairy-free, and I don't have any refined sugars. If I eat anything with white sugar or anything like that, I was seeking out foods like that, or high fructose corn syrup, I go into instant fatigue.
Oh, interesting.
I am so, if I have, sometimes, hey, I'm human, I want a little sweet something, right? Yep. But if I eat it, all of a sudden it's within 20 minutes, I need to lay down. I'm tired.
Oh, interesting. That quick.
Yeah. So I'm okay, but I'm fine with a little coconut sugar or a little maple syrup. But again, it's not I probably eat maybe a whole tablespoon of sugar, maple syrup in a day. That's about how much I'm having. And it's a little bit in my coffee, or I have some coconut sugar. I have some paleo cookies that I like to treat myself to. It's good with coconut sugar. So
yeah. Was your health situation the trigger, the catalyst for the Healthy Jasmin?
I think I think it was just more of just sharing my health journey, and that teaching people that Hippocrates, the father of medicine, says that all diseases begin in the gut. And the problem is that we've gone away from looking to the gut, to what's going on inside the gut, to see what's possibly causing these issues. We actually, it's interesting, there's certain doctors that will do stool testing, right?
Yep.
We do stool testing for our animals to see if they've got anything going on inside them, but we don't do that for ourselves. And we're mammals. At the end of the day, we're still a mammal. And what comes out tells a story on the inside, but unless you're an integrative functional medicine doctor, your conventional doctors are not going to look at that. They're not going to look for those bugs and parasites that lurk inside us, and if we have all those other candida, So, so those are just some other off the wall, I guess, or alternative diagnostic tools that, you know, doctors can use. Some do, some don't.
So you're dealing with your clients with food sensitivities. Tell us more about Healthy Jasmin. What do you do if I were your client, or how do you do what you do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I do a whole health history, and health history begins from birth. Like, how were you born? C-section, or were you born vaginally? Were you breastfed or were you formula fed? Because those are very good markers that really sets your path for gut health.
Oh,
So
interesting. I've never heard that before.
yeah. You know, so if you're born, you know, normally through the birth canal, babies actually will get a last bout of probiotics to start populating their gut. But if
Oh,
you're born via C-section, you don't.
okay.
So there's a difference there. And they actually show that science shows that kids that are born via C-section actually have more allergies, or more prone to allergies.
That'd be
So
my two kids, because both of mine are born C-section.
yeah, mine are too. Yeah. So you got to find things. And then of course, were you breastfed or you formula fed? Like you know, and you formula fed, you know, you don't get all the good colostrum and the, you know, the good lauric acid that's found naturally in breast milk. But if you are breastfed, you know, of course, the longer the baby is breastfed, the more health benefits both mom and baby reap out of that. But it helps their own gut. You
Mm-hmm.
know, all babies are born with leaky gut. And when you nurse, you actually, you know, I think it's around 4 to 6 months, it starts to seal, getting ready for solids, right? It's just, the human body is just so amazing for that way. So that colostrum is really important, getting that golden milk to start working, to getting that digestive tract going and start setting its path towards, you know, sealing that gut.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it really starts from that part. You know, you really have to go back and then talk about their childhood. Did you have ear infections, tonsillitis? You know, were you on a lot of antibiotics? What was your diet like? And then we go into what started happening. We started going through chain of events in terms of where they're at today in terms of their health.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what I like to do is, I'm like a detective, you know, and
I like that face. For the listeners, we also have a video of this. You should see her face right now. She's like, yeah, I got you.
yeah, you know, and I'll just be able, sometimes I have people just start telling me their issues, and I will say, did you ever look at SIBO? And then a year later, I had somebody come to me, you know, I got tested for SIBO and I was positive. Like, how did you know? You know, it's just that's just, I think, one of the gifts I've been given to be able to discern how people discern people's health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's so important because, as I shared with you, I was diagnosed with microscopic colitis this year, and it was this whole song and dance where they couldn't figure out what I had and why I was not feeling so well. And I would go from one doctor to the next, and finally had a colonoscopy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have microscopic colitis, but what can you do about it?" Well, you hear massive amounts of Pepto-Bismol is the solution, or what if that doesn't work, something much stronger. And I had talked to a friend of mine who's an acupuncturist and said, you know, can you look at this? Maybe you guys with acupuncture and Chinese herb can do something about it. And within 3 treatments, my diarrhea had stopped. I felt so much better. And the colonoscopy, they couldn't believe it, that I was basically fixed. And they're like, if you sure you don't want any Pepto-Bismol? And I'm like, I'm okay. I'm sticking to acupuncture and the Chinese herbs. And I mean, it's not working probably for everybody. It definitely worked for me. And so that I think we need to first of all be our own best advocate to not just say, okay, now I'm taking Pepto-Bismol, and be done with our gut and say, okay, this is just the way it is. Like your detective work, I think, is so valuable, helping clients when they have things that don't seem to be explainable and why they have it, and establishing that history.
Right. No, it is, because I mean, it's part of our story. It's part of our health story.
Yeah.
And you need to go back to that so that you can actually give the person the what, some possible solutions, some possible answers. Now, I can't diagnose. Right. So I often just tell people, like, this is what I think may be going on. Here are some recommendations, or I'll specify what type of doctor for them to go see. And then what happens is they come back and the doctor doesn't believe me and the doctor won't listen to me, and
so like, common. Okay. Oh my God. So common.
It is. And, I've got doctor friends that get upset with me when I share things, and I'm like, I'm just speaking truth. And, you're not taught any of this in medical school. But you need to start looking at the person, not just their issue. Yeah.
And that's why I think that the holistic approach is so needed when it comes to these mysterious, in my point, in all things, but mysterious things that the medical community, and I don't blame them for not having that knowledge, because that's not how they're trained, but then be open to other possibilities.
Right. Because, if you let pride and ego get in the way, it only hurts us more collaboratively as a whole, as a nation, so you got to have a willingness and openness to learn.
Yeah, I agree. Now let's switch topics a little bit.
Yeah.
You ran 2 Chicago marathons, but after all your ordeal, things have changed. So what made you run a marathon?
Well, when I was working in corporate wellness, there was a lot of people that were running. I had dabbled in running a little bit when I was in college. Again, I loved how I felt, the runner's high, all that good stuff. And so they were like, oh, we're all running, the very first race I ever ran was a half marathon. It wasn't a 5K. It wasn't a 10K. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in. And then I really enjoyed it. I love the being in the groups and the camaraderie that we all, shared. And then I think it was a year later, I ended up running my first Chicago marathon. And then I ran one more because I actually did a couple of marathon trainings at my job in Chicago. I ran some marathon training groups, and I ran my second one. But I think that, through the years, your body changes, and I don't think running is the best form of exercise. I think that for short term, it's great, but it really does a number on the hips and the joints. And, and after you have babies, your hips are they never go back to normal. So, and it widens your Q angle, which puts more stress and pressure on your knees. So you've got that. And my body just doesn't like to run anymore. When you become over 40, you need to focus on weightlifting.
Very true.
And keeping that growth hormone activated in your body. The only way you do that is through weightlifting. Mind-body exercises. I love Pilates still this day. Can't find a Pilates trainer anywhere around where I live. But like bar classes or yoga are really great to still strengthen those inner muscles that you don't get with strength training. So weight-bearing exercises is so important for women over 40.
Yeah, it's so under emphasized. I mean, everybody is into high intensity workouts, and I mean, I'm still do triathlons, although I don't think I will do an Ironman again. I just don't feel the burning desire like I had. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's about cross training, and on the days when I run, and whatever the mileage is, it's irrelevant. I always have at least a half an hour of strength training with weights, with bands, with Pilates, and I mix it all together. But I feel that every woman needs to, like you said, after the age of 40, is really emphasize strength training for bone density, for also increasing the metabolism and looking spunky. I mean, I want to look good. I don't want to go down flabby.
Right. Yeah. I mean, typically I weightlift twice a week. I did it this week. It just was a crazy schedule. I was traveling last weekend. I'm traveling this weekend, and I only had like 3 days home this week. So, but I still get on the ball and I'll do some crunches. I still try to do something, because I always feel like it's better than nothing. Right. And just like, I age gracefully.
Yep. And you know what? It's like, this is so good. Something is better than nothing. And I started a little series called the 3 Minutes of Ultimate Fitness. And it's on YouTube, and where people can go and do this one segment. It takes you no more than 3 minutes. Each exercise is for 1 minute, and you're done. And I've gotten such great feedback on these. People are like, I'm in the office hiking and I just did it. I saw the video and I just knocked out my 3 minutes. It's awesome.
I'm going to have to share that with my nutrition clients when they tell me they don't have any time to work out. I'm going to share them that 3 minute. I'm like, if you got 3 minutes.
You got 3 minutes.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to check it out.
Check it out. I try to vary it so it's oftentimes doesn't use equipment, so it's more portable, but I, of course, incorporate the ball and the bands. But this brings me to your 4 pillars of health in your life, which are faith, family, food, and fitness. So why is it important and how are they all connected to you?
Right. Well, we talk so much about food and fitness, but that really, food is really the foundation of our health, and then fitness is like kind of like it kind of goes in that like maybe third tier, right? But when it comes to like family and faith, like your family is it when it comes to having that support system that you need. You need family to rely on. It's your community, it's your tribe. And so, that's what I'm trying to, teach my children is like, we're always going to have family and someday you guys are going to leave the nest and you're going to have your own family and that's going to become, it's just kind of like how you impart your legacy in this world. And that's the way I look at it from a family perspective is like, what legacy am I leaving within my children that could be passed on in generations? Nice. And that's why family is so important. And then my faith, I've had quite a faith journey. My dad's from Pakistan and I was baptized Muslim as a child. My parents divorced, my dad left. And then my grandma was like, you need to change your religion. So I changed it to Catholic. I didn't know any better. I was 15. So I just figured I would be what everybody else was in the family. And it wasn't until I met my husband, I started exploring more and questioning, faith, what is it? Who is God? All that stuff. And I actually was rebaptized again for the 3rd time into the Christian community. And that's part of my faith journey. Mm-hmm. But I feel like, even when you're in the pits of your pits, that your faith is what's going to keep you going and get you through. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's me.
Yeah, I love the 4 pillars. When I saw that, I was like, I definitely want to share that with the listener because as you laid it out, it makes so much sense and that one supports the other and it's such a strong foundation of one's life.
Yes, and faith looks different to everybody. I don't condone anybody for their faith journey. I just say, I respect your journey. You respect my journey. There's no reason to make fun of one or the other. It's just that, you do what works for you. And some people are uncomfortable when I share my faith. And I just say, well, that's just part of who I am. If that makes you feel uncomfortable and maybe this is not the right fit for you. And I'm okay with that, so I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Embrace everything and everybody with their opinions and their religion. It's like everybody believes different things and that's not wrong, but it just came. Yeah, it just came across so strongly on your website and through your personality. So I thought that my listeners definitely want to hear about that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I enjoy sharing that journey because it is a journey.
Yeah. Now, my last question is, what would be 3 things, or even more, if whatever many of you have, but 3 things that you could tell other women dealing with a chronic illness?
Yes. From like nutrition, food aspect, I think find what foods you're sensitive to through an elimination diet, because those foods that cause an inflammatory response are causing more flame to your fire internally. Mm-hmm. I think one of the best things we can do is get in the habit of every single morning drinking hot lemon water. Squeeze a half a lemon or a full lemon into hot lemon water. I add a little ginger oil to it because ginger oil is very great for the digestive system. And I drink that every single morning. In fact, I've got 2 lemons in my refrigerator that I'm packing with me today when I travel. So if I can't, but I try to, and I just use the hot water from the hotel, mm-hmm. So if I can't have access to it, it's the one thing I'm going to keep doing. And if I miss a few days here or there, it's no big deal. But it really is wonderful for the liver, gallbladder, and getting that going in the morning. Yes. I think stretching, so we go into the 4 pillars like fitness. I think the best thing we can do for our body is stretching. I stretch before I go to bed at night. I think most importantly, we have to stay limber and flexible, because tight muscles cause a lot of other physical, discomfort. So I think stretching is really important. Third would be finding your tribe, your community, your support system that you need to lean on. I have a lot of variety of friends, and I love that I have different types of friends and different groups of friends, but there's only a few people that I, have entrusted into my circle where I can be vulnerable with. And I think that we need a couple of people like that in our lives, so that they can provide us with, either just an ear to listen, or, some good feedback and advice if you need it, if you ask for it. And then what gives you hope and faith? Some people journal, listen to mindful meditation music. There's a whole transcendental meditation, something like that. I'll read I'll do like the first 5. It's an app. And I'll read, it's like scripture based, and I'll read that every morning. It takes 5 minutes, to listen to it or to read it. Something that I'm going to start my morning with as part of my morning routine that I have. And that includes reading scripture, hot lemon water, being mindful and starting my day with good intentions. So that would be that kind of touch on one of those 4 pillars.
Yeah. I think that's also a very well-rounded approach. Because many of us just get up, grab a coffee, and go. And there's nothing in between. Or, get in the car and listen to the news while drinking the coffee. Or, it's so many not healthy ways to start your day or lead your life. And especially when you have a chronic illness, you need even more time than the average person could take if they wanted to. And then setting the intentions for the day, I think, is really important, to take that time, like you said, to reflect and think about what your day could look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I never had been, I've always had like a little morning routine, but that's just something, when you go into business on your own, you realize the value and the importance of your first hour of your day.
Yeah. Very true. So thank you so much for being here, Jasmin, and sharing all your wisdom and all the knowledge that you have. But how can people reach you?
Yes, thank you so much. So my website is healthyjasmin.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Healthy Jasmin, and my information is all on my website. So I share a lot of things, all things healthy, in terms of, all comprehensive wellness. And I hope that you guys enjoy the information that I share. And it's just my goal to make people think differently about how their bodies work, but also to be a truth seeker and peel back the onion layers, because once you peel it back, the truth comes out, and you can find what is going on and what's ailing you inside your body just by peeling back those onion layers. So
that just gave me goosebumps. So again, thanks for being here, and thanks everybody for listening. So now we know how to find Jasmin, and I hope we'll see you soon on the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Ciao.
Ciao.